Face to face, hand to hand, film to film.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Film to Film, the best podcast about movies, in my opinion. My name is Nia DaCosta and I'm here with my good friend, James Shergan. Hey James, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Second trip back to the cinema since the pandemic.
Oh, okay. What was your first film?
The Green Knight.
Okay. When was that?
Maybe about a month ago. I was not a huge fan, so, you know.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, my first film was Black Widow, back to, theater, and I too was not a huge fan of that movie. So I am very happy that we chose a movie this time that maybe, I don't know about you, but that I enjoyed quite a bit. But before jumping into the movie, what was your, how does it feel going back to the theater?
It's different. I wore the mask the whole time, so it's I wasn't eating popcorn or anything like that. But it is nice to see something on the big screen. I do feel like it's a big advantage for movies. It's just that much more immersive. And I think especially a film like Candyman, where it does have some really, really nice looking shots, as does the original. It does have some big benefits. And I do know that the director, Nia DaCosta, was pretty insistent on having this released in theaters. I can see why a filmmaker would want it released in that way rather than through the smaller screen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree. It is just very nice also to be immersive is the word you said, and I will say that it's just nice to have a screen that is way bigger than you, have the full surround sound. I mean, you can pay as much money as possible, like at your house, get a 4K giant TV, but it doesn't beat being at the theaters. The wearing of the mask, I mean, I would say 100% necessary. I think I'm still concerned about the Delta variant. With that said, I wear glasses and I do not have contacts, so wearing a mask and trying to watch a movie is a challenge. I don't know about you.
I've gotten used to it. I also wear glasses, so I don't know.
Oh, you used to, I thought you wore contacts sometimes.
Not lately. I've worn them so seldomly that I need to get this is a total tangent that our viewers don't care about, but I need to get the one-day ones, which I just haven't gotten yet.
Gotcha.
So I can use them because I have not been wearing them enough.
I mean, it's a tangent, but I do think that it's I don't know. In my opinion, it's kind of relevant when it comes to theater. I am like the only idiot who has never figured out how to not fog up his glasses while wearing a mask. So even now, whenever I'm wearing a mask, I'm not wearing glasses, which means I just see blurry. But in the theater, obviously, I'm going to be wearing glasses. So it is sort of a challenge. And I think, I don't know, I'm sometimes curious if other people have that issue, especially now.
I have that issue when it rains outside or when it's really cold. But no, I didn't have that issue seeing Candyman.
All right, fair enough. Maybe given that DC is more humid, maybe that's why. But I mean, beyond that, I mean, I really miss going to the theaters. It's kind of a nice break from everything a little bit. You're in the dark room. Even when watching this movie for the podcast, it's not having to take notes meant that I could straight up just pay attention to the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. This is our first podcast recorded this way, so I'm curious to see how this goes because normally I suspect we're both taking notes while we're watching the film. But this time we both are in the theater, so I have 0 notes on this. And thankfully you are the one leading, so we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I guess we'll try to run off my memory, which, oof. All right. So anyways, as we have mentioned many times, we watched Candyman, the 2021 Candyman film. We recently talked about the one from the 90s, the original. This one, I would say, feels like a soft reboot or kind of a sequel. I want to call it a soft reboot because although I've not seen the sequels of the first Candyman, from what I understand, this one kind of ignores them.
Yeah, I think fans of Candyman sort of treat those two like really annoying aunts and uncles they're just like, oh, we just don't talk about them.
Right, right.
The black sheep of the family. They'd rather just not be acknowledged. And so, I've seen Candyman 2. This doesn't bring hardly anything from that film. I don't think it brings anything at all, actually. So I think it's like stuff from Candyman 1. Obviously, some of that lore is in this film, but not the other two, as far as I can tell.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I feel like it seems more of a soft reboot than another sequel of the film.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
This one was directed by Nia DaCosta. Apparently, it's done really good in the box office, which is great because she is a black female director. So I think she has been like the highest grossing black female director. Am I wrong?
Yeah. You might be right. I don't know. I can't fact check you right now. But I mean that's cool, but also a little depressing because I mean it's the pandemic, so I don't know that movies are making too much. But yeah,
I know for sure.
Yeah. DaCosta also became the first black female director to have a film finish #1 at the box office. So I don't know if it's breaking which records it's breaking, but it is breaking some records.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I think there were other big movies coming out around the same time. So I don't know.
It's summer. It's summer.
So
what's it? Shang-Chi came out, I think. So yeah, there's some Marvel films and stuff like that coming.
Yeah, so it is kind of impressive that I think it's good, and I think it's totally deserved. I mean, this movie had been in development for a while. Apparently, it was supposed to come out in 2020, but it got delayed for COVID. So it's nice that it's finally out, and I think it's this is not DaCosta's debut film. Her debut was Little Woods, which I never saw.
Yeah, I saw it. It's a nice solid indie film. Yeah, I watched it a couple weeks ago, sort of thinking that I might see this film. So yeah, it's a good movie. Yeah, very minor. Obviously, a very small film compared to this one, but I do like that film.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how she's gonna be directing a Marvel movie, but I mean at the same time I feel like that's what Marvel does. It's just they hire a bunch of good indie directors, and either they finish the movie or Marvel kicks them out halfway through because they're too weird.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a good sign or a bad sign if they get kicked out. I might actually look forward to their next film after Marvel more if they actually got kicked out.
Yeah, maybe. Although it's kind of sad because many of the people who have gotten kicked out like halfway through, I mean there haven't been new movies coming out from them. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Anyways, but yeah. Let's hope that she does well enough with the Marvel film so she can make bank, and that way she can come back and make really good indie films or not big budget films that we can enjoy, and where she has all the freedom that she had probably with this one.
Yeah. We've had some conversations about like sort of that strategy of doing one for them and one for us with like Guillermo del Toro or even like someone like Martin Scorsese, who might alternate between something he's very passionate about, like The Last Temptation of Christ, and then like something far more commercial like The Color of Money.
Right.
So I mean, like if she can build up that cachet and have a couple good big budget successes, which it seems like Candyman is on the road for, then good for her, and hopefully she can also pursue some what I'm assuming are more passion projects, unless her passion projects are indeed the Marvels. But for some reason I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, me too. And Anyway, so just what do you think of the movie?
I have mixed feelings on the film. I thought some of it, I think it has some very strong strengths and some things that I didn't work quite so well. But I definitely like some aspects of it. I think visually it is very strong. What did you think of the film?
I really liked it, but I do think that I agree with you that it's not a perfect film. I think there were a couple of things that could have been better explained in the movie. There are other things that might have worked better if they were a little bit more subtle, but maybe not. I don't know. It is kind of difficult sometimes to not compare with the original, because this movie definitely made me appreciate many parts of the original a lot more, actually.
So if you had to pick one, which one are you picking?
I would pick the original by a little bit. Like they both.
Okay.
How about you?
I definitely picked the original. Yeah, I'm glad they made this film, but I'd pick the original.
Yeah, I mean, I love that this is not a remake. I do love also that this definitely takes a whole new perspective of things. I like the perspective that this movie takes. I just feel like the ending gets like it felt rushed to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I've actually today I watched the movie last night, so I watched it very recently.
Oh,
I did listen to a podcast and a half of people talking about it, and and everyone liked it more than I did actually. But they one complaint I heard from people that liked it was that they actually wished it was longer and explained a bit more about sort of the stuff that was going on. I think I agree. I almost wish I feel like the parts where this one works, and I think it's sort of an interesting contrast because we just did Memories of Murder on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, is that film really, for me at least, really integrates a lot of different aspects. And for me, Candyman, it tries to do a whole lot, which I definitely respect. And I don't know that all of it lands, and I especially don't know that the ending lands. It's one of the reasons why I do have sort of mixed feelings on this. It's like I think some things were really strong, but maybe some of it is a little bit overstuffed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, well, I'm gonna throw in a quick summary that I got from IMDb, just for the audience for the ones who have not seen the film and are dumb enough to be listening to us before seeing the film.
Yeah, this is a spoiler episode.
I mean, always. But summary, in present day, many years after the last of Cabrini Towers were torn down, Anthony and his partner move into a loft in the now gentrified Cabrini. A chance encounter with Alzheimer's exposes Anthony to the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to use this macabre detail in his studio as fresh grist. Fuck it. Anyways, I'm gonna summarize even more than that. Anthony discovers about Candyman. He gets excited to use it in his art, but unleashes terrifying waves of violence.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I probably could have done it shorter. This is really long. What do you think of the?
Yeah. It's interesting. This film tries to do so much that it almost doesn't sum it all up. But I don't know how you could make it better. So
I mean, to be honest, not just thinking on top of my head. I mean, to sum up a synopsis, for this film would be more of artist moves into a gentrified area that where horrible things happened. He discovers about the folk story of Candyman, or the folk legend of Candyman. Upon using that as his inspiration, he opens the door to horror. Done. I mean, I know it's accurate but incomplete. But I mean, you're not going to be able to touch upon it. I mean,
Sure.
unless you say like the film explores the race, past and present race history and issues with America in America, whatever. But
Yeah. Blah blah blah.
yeah, exactly. You could do that. I mean, I think in some areas, I think what I enjoyed about this movie is that at moments it is blunt about some of the racial issues. That although it's blunt and not subtle, it's done in a tasteful manner. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, that's definitely one of my complaints is that, yeah, it's a little on the nose for my own preference. And, I got to recognize that it is my own preference for these things. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, I do feel a little bit like the the critic in the art exhibit, where she complains about it being a little, on the nose and didactic. And obviously that's not a very likable character, but here I am, making a very similar, point. So yeah, for me, I actually strongly prefer sort of the subtext in the way that the original one worked.
Yeah, it is funny you mentioned this because I do feel like I wouldn't be surprised that critic was, like basically written to preempt people with your point of view. Not that it's. I mean, because it's a point of view. Like some people do not like something too blunt. Like when some things are too on the nose or too blunt. I personally, I mean, I was going back and forth on it. Like at some moments, I was like, they're just straight up saying it.
Yeah, and for me, that's almost always too much. I don't know. I tend to react negatively when like a film tries to shove a message, even one I agree with, down my throat a little bit, or what I feel like is too much. And for me, I got enough that it didn't ruin the movie for me, but it was not an aspect that I would comment positively on about the film.
Right. And on my hand, though, I think what I find interesting is that although they straight up say all the things that are happening, they're talking about gentrification. They're talking about white people pushing black people out. They're talking about. They actually don't talk about police violence. That's one that they just show, and they show quite literally. Even though they talk about all this stuff, it doesn't feel. I guess to me, because I've been thinking about it. Because I most of the time I agree with you. When something is just straight up said, it feels not natural. It feels like it puts you out of the movie. However, at least personally, me living in DC with people of multiple with all professional class folks, which I feel like this is the type of people in this movie, right? People who are like upper class folks, but all of different races, like Black, Latinos, etc. This shit is shit we talk about. Like while we're getting drunk, we straight up talk about we're taking we're part of the problem of gentrification. Blah blah blah. We get into debates like that. At least here in our elite multicultural East Coast, if you will. So, given that this movie is set in Chicago and all these people are wealthy minorities, it's not out of place. It's not out of place at all. It's actually very on place and very very natural and realistic that they would be having those talks.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong that it's realistic. I mean, I don't feel like those conversations would be something that... I'm in Seattle too, so I'm part of a not too dissimilar bubble where those conversations would be not out of place too. I don't know. I mean, I am very curious to see how I would feel about this film and once the cultural zeitgeist has moved past. I could see it going both ways. For me, at least, I found it to be a little tired as well. I don't know. It feels like a conversation that has been had a lot, and maybe I'll feel differently, and I'll feel like, oh yeah, those were how we were sort of talking in like 2020 and 2021, and it'll sort of have a greater resonance in the future. But for me right now, it's not something that really struck a positive note.
No, for sure. I guess my point was more on there are tons of movies that shove a message, but it feels completely out of place. Like the conversation is not at all like it's just not organic. It's not you don't understand why the fuck this like where did this come from? And with this movie, actually it works out really well. You know, it's like a bunch of like friends, families, drunk, like all around the same age, drunk. One of them is a realtor. So they straight up, he's talking about like, oh yeah, you bought this gentrified thing, bitch, or whatever. And you're like, all right, yeah, I can see that. And I mean, you even get that little play where one of the I think what's her name, Brianna's boyfriend, Brianna's brother's boyfriend, who is the only white guy. This is like at the beginning. They're like when they're talking about gentrification.
I have the cast up now. Grady Greenberg. I don't even know if they said his name, but there you go.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, but Troy's boyfriend, who's the only white guy at that dinner. It's funny when he is like, well, you're part of the problem, talking about gentrification, and everyone just gets quiet, kind of like, shut the fuck up, white guy. It's just like they move on. I don't know. It just feels. It felt organic to me, and I think it was well mixed with the plot itself. That it didn't. That again, it was on the nose. I'm not gonna disagree with that, but it was. But what impressed me is that although it was on the nose, it didn't bother me because it was well integrated with the plot, with not just the plot, but with the moment. And I don't know if that was the director. In my opinion, in that way, to me, that's actually a plus for the director or the writers, or both, on how to integrate.
In this case, she is a writer as well.
Right. Yeah.
There are two other writers credited, one of which is Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who you give credit to.
All of them. All three of them.
Sure.
But yeah. So I was thinking maybe we could talk about the cinematography first, and then go more into the more plotty related themes. Sure. I mean, what were your thoughts about it?
So cinematography might be my number one reason why I would recommend people see this film. I think it lands. I think it looks super good from start to finish. And a lot of the frames are really good. I think it establishes a different look than the original. And I like sort of that inverted look. The original had lots of the helicopters, eye in the skies. This one starts from almost the opposite, where I mean, I was just in Chicago maybe 2 months ago, and it's like almost from that river, and it almost seems like it's just looking up into this like super overcast, foggy sky at the super tall buildings. I think it looks fantastic. I thought she did a good job. My favorite cinematography kill from a visual look was the critic who dies, and the camera just sort of zooms out. And I just think in terms of that stuff, and this is probably the reason, even though I have mixed feelings on the film, why I am excited to actually see more from Nia DaCosta is like, I think she has a really strong visual look, just her films. And so, there's some cool, I don't know about your theater, but my theater had like a photosensitivity thing up about like flashing lights and stuff.
Oh, no, we didn't have
and
that.
warning people. Okay, well, mine did, and there are a number of flashing lights. It actually reminded me of El Casa, or whatever that film was we watched, but it's actually not overdone in this film. So I thought the look of the film was outstanding, and I thought it holds up as like not necessarily similar to the original, but I mean just as good in a lot of ways.
No, for sure. One thing I forgot to mention with the theater viewing experience, but since you mentioned your theater, So I'm getting off a tangent again. One and the other reason why I loved watching this movie in theaters, and this goes well beyond watching like a Marvel film or something else, is that at least in here in DC, where we have a very large Black community, you had on point reactions from the audience. And I mean, it was just amazing. Just like, because that, I guess that also adds to the experience. Like when they're talking about certain points, someone goes, "Mm-hmm, yeah, shit like that."
So, yeah. Was your theater pretty packed?
It wasn't packed, but it had people. It had quite a bit of people. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you went
with
with
popcorn though.
I mean, that's the theater. You went with your partner too?
Yeah.
And did she like it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you shared that because that is one other big part of the theater experience that we missed. I am in Seattle, which is much less Black than Washington D.C., but I do live in one of the parts of town that is a little bit blacker. So I saw it with maybe 20 people in the theater, and maybe like 8 or 9 were Black, which is a pretty Black audience for Seattle.
Oh.
But so there was a little bit of a reaction, but I think my audience was just smaller in general than yours.
Yeah, no, since on our side, like I don't know, it was just like it's just like when people like I mean, this is a moment when like a film, like the target audience is an audience that will sympathize and empathize a lot more with the subject matter, and when you're with that audience, the actual target audience, I feel like the experience is much richer. I mean, in fact, I remember when I watched Get Out. It was also here in DC, and it was just one of those where, like many times when people are talking or reacting to movies is annoying, but for some reason when like they're fully in tune with the film, it almost enhances that. I don't know.
I agree. I mean, I am no fan of people on their phones during films, but yeah, when people are interacting with the material in front of them, I don't know. I have a hard time taking issue with that, even if it is can be a little distracting. I mean, that's part of the theater communal experience that is, frankly, pretty enjoyable at times.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, this film, I don't know if it was Nia DaCosta or maybe Jordan Peele had like a little bit of some direction there, some direction, but this film definitely has comedy, and when you're in the theater and the comedy hits most of the audience, it'll hit you too.
Yeah. No, I think that's something that worked, and missing Get Out in theaters is definitely a big regret of mine. I think I was moving around that time, and so I just totally missed it. But yeah, I agree. The humor, I thought the film, the writing of the film and the dialogue of the humor, I thought was some of the writing that I did enjoy of the film, and I thought that stuff did land. So I don't know. It's easy to give Jordan Peele credit for that stuff just because he's the comedy person, but who knows who wrote that? Yeah,
it might have been her. I mean, again, as a collaborative work, which all films technically are. This was just. I really liked it. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, I think the higher up it goes. Like I remember when I left the theaters, I probably felt more like you. And I had and the film had like the original was significantly higher than this one. But now I'm like now that gap has gone down because the more I think about it and I think about the experience. Anyways, going back to cinematography, so I completely agree with you in that it was kind of nice that this film, instead of copying the original, it goes completely almost the opposite way, having the worm eye view instead of the bird's eye view, and almost showing Chicago as a maze from ground up. I don't think I've ever seen that before, because all the buildings almost felt like a corridor. Or like a maze where you just kind of moved around, but from you and the clouds were the floor, if you will, which kind of goes hand in hand with many scenes where you would see Anthony usually, whenever he had to meet with someone, the movie would follow him as he's walking through these narrow hallways with usually shitty lighting, which is, I mean, the hallways are, the lighting is good, but I'm saying like the hallways like show like cheap lighting.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, like the original, you sort of get this great Chicago architectural view of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think both films, this and the original, both really capture that.
Mm-hmm.
The sequels, I think, are set in different cities too, so those are kind of another way it sets it apart.
Oh yeah. And yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, I'll stop bringing up the crazy aunt and uncle. So let's get back to the.
Well, I haven't.
Let's get out of the film.
I haven't met them, so I wouldn't know. Right?
You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to.
No. What I also like is that this is one of those films where when you watch the original and then you watch this one, they will enhance each other almost. You get a more appreciation for the original by watching this reboot, but you also have you appreciate more this reboot by watching the original because you got those echoes.
One thing I do like about this film too is like I feel like a lot of the modernizations of or reboots or whatever you want to call them of classic material or original material, they often focus a lot on like sort of the new technology and like it's super integrated with like social media or computers or cell phones or something like that. And this film I thought goes for a little bit less of that, and I actually appreciate that about the film. I think it probably it increases the chances it will probably age in a more graceful way rather than being like super grounded in like the year 2021.
No, I completely agree. I think this. I mean, we never know what will be timeless or not. But this film's like, this film feels like it'll be timeless.
I mean, he even has to go back into like the old school archives and get like Helen Lyle's information from that.
Another thing I liked about this movie is. And I mean, if you compare it with the old one, this one actually, the old one kind of was, in certain ways, more straightforward. What you saw is what you believed is what it is. I mean, there was one moment where it starts making you think maybe Helen is crazy, but you know, as this one, I feel like it's hard to believe the eyes of Anthony, because I mean in this movie you're in Anthony's eyes in a way, right? Like the original was in Helen's view, this one you're in Anthony's eyes. Like for example the hand, like at moments you see the hand rotting, at other moments actually the hand seems fine, and that's one thing I noticed, and I don't think there were continuity errors. I think they were on purpose. It was to sort of show that Anthony was kind of, I don't know if going crazy, but like he was kind of losing it after learning about Candyman. What do you have like any thoughts of that between that or like for example the use of mirrors? Many times when Anthony was around mirrors, something weird usually would happen. Either the Anthony in the mirror would be moving differently than the other one.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good and sort of those aspects of showing like multiple mirrors. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense with just Candyman and some of the lore there. I mean, I've heard one alternate sort of description, and I think this would probably make more sense if this was an original one-off film rather than sort of a spiritual sequel or a sequel. Is that you could just see this. It almost plays, at least up until the end, as like this could all be going in Anthony's head, as sort of like it's more a picture of a guy going crazy. The one exception to that would be killing like the 5 teenage girls, which makes no sense because Anthony has never interacted with them. But all of the other kills are like people he has had some sort of acrimonious interaction with.
Right.
So you could see it as like, oh, he's actually the killer and he's doing it this way. Obviously, that's not the route film does, but it could play. It's easy to see how the film could play in that way, and that also might show you how sort of like it shows the mental degradation of his character.
Right,
throughout
exactly.
The story.
Right, and what's interesting is the original does that too. Like, I mean, it could have easily gone into Heather actually went crazy and she was the one killing everyone.
Yeah. I mean, the first one even makes more of a point of it, and I do kind of prefer the first one on these points of like Candyman is basically like framing her in a way. Like he frees her from the restraints and stuff like that when they kill the psychiatrist and things like that.
Well, the thing is with this one, Candyman, and here's where this one is definitely a sequel, because in this one Candyman is dead. Anthony revives him. Like, I think that's you know, Anthony revives him, but it also adds a little bit to the lore, and this is the part where I this might be on the nose for you, and I'm not sure, but that I actually did like, which was the Candyman is a representation of, you know, the racial injustice and it's the embodiment of that. And I mean, one person literally says it straight up, right? Like, he talks about all the lists about a bunch of like real, you know, unjust killings of black people. Like, I forget the name of the kid who was electrified, or the other kid who was, you know, beat to the pulp. I mean, you know, historical, all these different historical moments. And that's the real story of Chicago, because all those are like the few names that were actually real cases. Those are cases in Chicago, right? And it's like, that's the history of Chicago. That's the history of the United States, and that's the thing. Candyman in reality is the spirit of all black men and women who have been unjustly killed for being black. And I mean, and that's what I was saying. Although it's on the nose, in the credit it wraps it up so beautifully, right? In the credits, when it's playing from the, you know, fake original fake story of the original Candyman, all the way till today, I guess, on all the different black men, kids, etc., that have been killed for being black.
Yeah, so I think this is probably the part where we start to disagree,
I bet.
where we agree more on the craft. For me, it just doesn't land. I mean, I really, I don't know. It's just trying to do a lot, and I do really respect that, but I just don't know that it works that well. And for me, yeah, it is a bit on the nose, but for me, it also is a little unfocused and messy in that sense. It's like, yeah, we can talk about it in this sense, and I almost wish they just chose something and more pursued it. But then how does like the teenage killings make sense? It's like, to me, those you could twist it in a way that maybe does make a little bit sense with like the black girl that gets caught in the thing. But for me, that stuff, it just doesn't work that well. Yeah.
Right. I mean, in a way, you could say that Candyman in this film is less of a monster and more of an anti-hero to some folks. Not a good anti-hero, right? An anti-hero is not a good person per se, right? But is someone that kills, and most of the time it might seem justified. Maybe not the teenage girls, although the movie tries to sort of justify it by them being shitty to the black girl. But then, you know, the movie completely, I mean, in my opinion, the better example of the inconsistency would be the older sister doing Candyman in her house. I don't know if you remember that part where they're doing kind of a montage, and she's like, she kicks out her little brother of the bathroom. And I mean, like this, you know, and this little black girl playing Candyman at home, and then she gets brutally killed. Like,
yeah, that's another example.
That would be the one where I'm like, okay, well, this one, there's no rhyme or reason. But
right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, you know, I'm not a big plot hole guy, but for me, it has a lot of ideas, and they just don't mesh together on the more thematic sense in a way that seemed particularly cohesive or well thought out to me. And that could just be me, and other people could it could land home a lot clearer. But for me, it just sort of left me cold and scratching my head.
No, for sure. I mean, I see that. I on the other hand, I guess, because I mean, I'm not arguing. I'm not trying to necessarily convince you, but I do want to like perhaps bring more on the points of one person's hero could still be a monster. One group's hero could still be a monster. Real examples are, there are many glorified bandits in history. For Mexican, there's like, I think, what's it called? Emiliano Zapata, I think is the name of the guy. Francisco Zapata?
Oh, yeah.
Pancho Villa. I mean, these were like bandits. These were like terrorists, if you will. And they killed a lot of innocent people while also doing a just fight. But I mean, there were bad people. So I kind of I feel like this movie frames Candyman as sort of this monster, if you will. A monster, which is kind of like the original film. However, it's a monster that sides with that acts as revenge, if you, or is the embodiment of basically the collective hate towards society of African Americans or American Black people. And I mean that could be an aspect, and then it would justify some of the innocent killings because it's a monster. It's just the embodiment of that rage.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what the filmmakers were going for, but for me, it just, I don't know, it didn't land.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think they sort of put that idea they put that idea in there with Helen's recording. Because I think some of those quotes are new. They were not from the original movie, and one of them is her talking about like, "Oh, I believe Candyman. I think this is just Candyman. It's a collective hysteria for the people living in the projects to justify or explain the horrors that happened there." And you're like, yeah, I mean that's kind of what it is. It's sort of a way of what is it? I want to say like a release of that of the nightmare, the living nightmare that these folks live in.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, and I'm not saying it's a strong. I mean, I think it was a powerful analogy, a powerful point. I can see not being for you, but yeah. The other theme that I thought was interesting, though, in this one is the art world. Mm-hmm. This is something I will have to give some credit to my partner who has been in the art world, and one of the things that she said when we finished watching the film was, wow, I think this is the movie that represents almost most accurately the art world. And I was like, whoa. And this movie represents it in it's not like, oh, artist and everyone is just annoying and irritating and all that. It's the artists are people who are working really, may or may not be working really hard or trying to work really hard on doing their craft, while the people who buy, the buyers, the market, the reliance on critics, the reliance on basically rich people to fund that is really shitty. And people just buy the story and they don't really give a shit about the work.
That makes sense. Before I weigh in, I just wanted to say that your whoa sounded like you just like smoked 3 joints and watched 2001 Space Odyssey for the first time.
Okay.
But yeah, the art world. I didn't think that much about the art world. It wasn't a major complaint for me, but I'm glad to hear that it is realistic. I thought it was a good sort of like piece of the canvas, or a good texture to have, is just sort of like something that's a little more interesting to show a bunch of like rich assholes that are good, good meat for the butcher shop that is Candyman.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely.
I like the art world stuff. I mean, it's cool. I like the art aspects of the original and the graffiti art, and I also do like the art in this one.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, it also provides, especially the gallery provides probably my second favorite kill in in this film. My second or third favorite kill. So should we jump into the kills now?
Sure.
All right. So first of all, what's your favorite kill?
I think we already talked about it.
Right,
the one in the building. Yeah, with that one. Yeah.
The critic.
But all of them were super well done. I mean, like the teenage girl stuff. I was just complaining about how it kind of stands out as far as the film goes, and I don't know if it would have made sense to cut or somehow explain it a bit better. But that shot with the fucking mirror. Oh my god, it's a great shot. It's super well done. The just almost as a straight slasher. I wonder if I would have joined this film more if I'm just looking at it as more as like a slasher, where I'm just enjoying watching shitty people get mowed down, more than like a more deeply rich theme thing. But yeah, I mean, like that kill was also definitely noteworthy. The art gallery, as you talked about. So I don't know. Those three are the ones that come to mind. Are those the only three, or were there more on screen?
Well, so you have others that are not by Candyman. And interestingly enough, they are still horrific. So you got Sherman Fields.
Yeah.
The original, the man who's presumably Candyman for most of the movie. And you have William Burke, the religious, the Candyman religious zealot, who Brianna kills with a fucking pen.
Yeah.
and that one was pretty brutal too. You got the cops.
Yeah. A lot of the cop ones happen off screen though.
I mean, most of the kills actually happen off screen. I think the only kill that is like straight up on screen is the critic, the critic on the gallery guy's girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see a lot of like the teenage girls getting mowed down. Obviously, not all of it is on screen, but it's like not at like a straight cutaway.
True. No, you're right. You see parts of it. I mean, what's nice about the girls is that. What's nice about all the kills though is that I love the angles. I love that, and that each kill is a little bit different, and none of them are. It's not about the gore on this one. It's almost about like the beauty of it.
Yeah, and not that it shies away from gore. It's like, especially the art gallery one has a lot of gore. And personally, for me, I'm pro gore.
I know.
I would have voted for Al Gore too, but I like the gore in this film.
I like. I mean, I mean, we talked about other movies. We enjoy some of the kills, but I mean, at the same time, it is nice to see different angles, different views. I mean, what I like about, for example, the gallery kill is how you only see Candyman in the reflections, because you never see Candyman actually in the place. It's always through the reflection. So it's nice to see a person being killed by something invisible while you see the reflection. You see Candyman in the back. I mean, generally speaking, those are really great kills. And then, of course, you have the kills by the cops. Those are probably one of the few kills where you actually see the victim's face while they're being shot or killed. And that I actually do like how there are the fun kills, like teenage girls, and then there are like the weighty kills, which is the ones killed by the cops. And I think that the movie does that very well in the framing. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I agree. They're done so differently, and contextually they're just totally different. That when you said kills, I didn't even think about the cop killings. Although you're technically right, they are kills.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of enjoyment, they are very low, as they should be. Yeah.
So yeah, no, for sure. On the let's see. And then I guess the other thing, this is the part where I would say being at a theater with a black audience was kind of enjoyable, is that they play on some of the quote unquote positive stereotypes of black people. One of them being black people in horror movies. There's always the stereotypes that are going to be like, oh hell no, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. You know, well, white people go down the basement, the black person will not. And this movie does that, and the audience kind of completely ate it up, and that made the enjoyment a lot more. Like when there's the scene where Brianna is in at the laundromat in the office, and she sees that there's a basement. She kind of opens the door, looks down, and she's like, hell no. And at least the couple next to me went like, mm-hmm, yeah. And I was just like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, my audience had a similar reaction.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, it's just funny. So there's that, and again, maybe this is on the nose, but I do like how one character actually explains why these stereotypes exist, which is Troy. I think this is a gallery when they're reading about, like, they're saying, oh, say Candyman 5 times, and then his white boyfriend is like, Candyman, 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 and Troy's like, stop, I'm black, we're gay, we already live in a horror movie, let's not make it worse. And you're like, yep.
Yeah, that was a good line. Yeah, I mean, I liked a lot of the supporting cast too, like Troy and his boyfriend, and I liked the laundromat guy until it went too wacky. Was not a fan of that twist
until he did like some really good drugs, because the guy goes like nuts, and I think he even mentioned drugs. It's like, am I in drugs? Who knows? I think he says something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, what scenes stood out for you?
I think for me at least, the parts that resonated the most were just the parts that were most visually beautiful, in terms of set pieces and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I liked a lot of. I liked, as I said earlier, the art critic, and I liked like sort of that layout, that very circular layout of her building. I liked the church setting was good, even though I didn't care for that twist that they put there. I don't know.
Well, which twist?
The fact that Burke has some crazy idea of making like the next Candyman,
which he ends up succeeding.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish that had been more developed. Like I'm not against it, but I'm not like. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the ending, and then we can talk maybe more in detail about the actors themselves. The church scene, really good setup. Really great scene where Burke is just chopping Anthony's arm. As you know, Anthony is sort of like in a trance, but like crying. He's almost like on the deep end, like the Get Out deep end, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and the chase scene, all of that, I think they do really well, especially being in a horror film. So I personally, that scene alone, Burke being crazy, all of that I think works out really well. But there was a gap between that and the rest of the movie that needed to like create that connection. What do you say?
Yeah, it's either that. I also tend to think that this is kind of where the film tends to get off the train tracks a little bit and derailed, where it just tries to do a little bit too much. So one way they could have done it is just spend a little more time developing it, and so you could see how it could end up at that point. Mm-hmm. But I do not think it worked in its current concoction, where you sort of have Brooke going from this guy that's sort of helping to move along the plot and explain stuff, and then all of a sudden he's chopping off Anthony's arm. And I like the way they shot that stuff, but I plot wise, for me, it wasn't great.
Yeah, it almost felt like it was part of a different film. Although then at the end, the very ending, right, once Anthony becomes Candyman, and the Candyman is represented in almost the different actors that played him. So Yahya, I think is then how you pronounce his name, but also Michael Hargrove, who is the old man with the hook, and also Tony Todd, who's the original Candyman. I mean, it shows all of them around the end, and I think like that. I think it works because it works with the plot, and I think it wraps up well there. So I just feel like there's just something missing. That would have connected the rest of the film with the church scene.
That's certainly possible. Yeah, I mean, if it were me and I was giving feedback to the creators, I think this film probably would have benefited from a slight simplification of the premise and concept. It just has almost too many ideas that it just, to me, just doesn't quite do it all justice. So I don't know. I don't know the exact solution. I was trying to think exactly what I would add or cut, and I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, something about it is a little just doesn't quite work.
I mean, I'm kind of curious if maybe there was something there, like that's because I mean the same goes with Brianna. Like they give her backstory where her dad is an artist who also killed himself, right? And they give you that backstory, but beyond her boyfriend now, or husband. Anyways, Anthony. Boyfriend, yeah. So her boyfriend also being an artist that at the end ends being killed. There's not much connection. So I do wonder if there was also something in there. Those are the little things where I feel like maybe they wrote more, maybe they even shot more, and then they decided to cut it down.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I don't know. I can't speak to it as
we don't know.
Don't have that inside knowledge. Yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, maybe I guess we could have done research.
I mean, we did a little bit. I did a little bit, but I didn't see that come up now.
Yeah, no, me neither. Now, the other thing I do find kind of interesting about this film, and maybe this is where, some of the subjects for you are tiresome, but I do wonder if it would have been tiresome had it been released when it was supposed to be released. And the reason I ask this is because this movie was shot, right, and basically was in post-production before COVID, and before, I always blank on the name. Well, basically, say his name. What's his name? The person who died, who was killed by the cops in 2020. What's his name? The person who
Trayvon Martin?
No, Trayvon was 2012 or 2013. No, I'm talking about like the most recent.
Breonna Taylor?
Breonna Taylor and the man who was choked.
Shit. Michael Brown?
Michael Brown. Yeah, like this was before Michael Brown. No, Michael Brown was 2014, dude. Michael Brown was
Okay.
the birth of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Oh, George Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd. That's a person.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
because I mean, George Floyd has been the most horrific police killing caught on tape. I mean,
Yeah.
we can, and I'm very careful to say caught on tape because I wouldn't be surprised that there's way worse police killings out there, but this is the most horrific caught on tape. And what's interesting is that this movie came out before the George Floyd situation. Michael Brown was 2014. The mainstream society kind of forgot about it already by 2016. Let's be honest. And until like 2020, very few people were talking about, cops killing black people, even though it's still happening. And Chicago, and this is the part where I think Chicago is relevant, is one of the biggest culprits. I mean, I think in 2017 or 2018, there were some major lawsuits and some minor victories uncovering police corruption and basically hiding racist cops that were killing black people. And I mean, there was a whole like controversy, and some cops were fired, although I don't think anyone ended up in jail, of course.
Right.
But anyways, all of this was happening, but most people were not talking about it. It was not in mainstream. And when this movie was supposed to come out, these were not subjects on the mainstream. However, George Floyd video came out. So before this movie was supposed to come out originally, like we had a shit ton of like the whole Black Lives Matter became like a huge topic. So I think that's perhaps why for like some people like you, this topic is more like on the nose because like everyone.
Oh, okay. So you're saying if it had come out before George Floyd, then maybe not.
Yeah, especially if it had come out like when it was originally intended to.
Well, if it had come out when it was originally intended to, it would have been completely on the nose, even more so than now, because that would have been after George Floyd.
Oh, when was it? Well, true. I guess
but it was obviously planned before that.
Right.
Huh. Interesting point. Yeah.
It was.
I'd have to consider it. That's why one of the reasons why I'm curious to think what I'll see about this, because I do respond to a lot of the cinematography of the film, and that is a big reason why I do like certain films, which is why I'm just curious to see maybe sort of the cultural climate and where I'm at will be in a different place in 10 years, and it'll hit in a different way that is a little more resonant than it is today.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, other movies, I mean, at least Jordan Peele movies, but like Get Out or Us, they talk about things and sometimes are very on the nose about, racial issues that are not talked to on a day-to-day basis. This one, I think the issue was not an issue that was talked on a day-to-day basis, but for the fact that George Floyd was horribly killed, and that's what it is. Anyways, but I guess my point is, it is impressive that this movie was written before that, and like how pressing and it is now that it came out, because like now this is a topic that is at least spoken by a lot of people. I mean, last year, like the amount of protests were just amazing.
Right.
And it was shot and intended to be probably released way ahead of its time. Or not way ahead of its time, but ahead of its time.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is at least an observation from my end.
No, I think that's a good observation. I hadn't considered that, but you're right. The timing of this certainly can impact the police involvement in the plot.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I do love the fact that this is in Chicago, because Chicago police is just so fucking known for this. And I mean, like, even the cop at the end where he's just like, oh man, what a shame what happened to him. But he was attacking you, right? Or should I say that you were accomplice and you too killed the other man? Can go either way, but it would be a lot better if you say that, but it would be a lot better if you say that he was attacking you. Like, clearly implying like we already have our story made to come out free.
Right.
I don't know. Again, so yeah, I think at least that's what I have on my notes. I mean, there's also the music. If that's, I guess I do have that on my notes too, which is by Robert A. Lowe. I don't know. What do you think about the music?
So no offense to Robert A. Lowe. I thought the music was fine. I thought it was good. But I do think if they had the option, they should have used the original soundtrack, because the original soundtrack is an amazing score. And I think...
but it plays with the, like, it sort of
It uses it a little bit, but like if they had the option to use it for this film, and they had the rights or whatever, I don't know, that's all complicated stuff. Then I don't know. The Philip Glass score is amazing. It's one of the all-timer film scores, and I think it would help this film.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this one is not as repetitive as Philip Glass. I mean, not that I again, I know I gave all my praises to Philip Glass score, but it is repetitive.
No doubt. I mean, I don't know. Repetitive scores work well in film movies. What am I gonna say?
For sure. All right, actors. So, actually, do you have anything to say?
I thought the cast was very good. Besides the cinematography, that might be the number 2 thing I'd recommend. Is like I thought the supporting cast is really solid, and I thought Yahya Abdul Mateen, who plays Anthony, was good in the lead, and I thought Teyona Paris, who is his girlfriend, was also good.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
General, no weak spots as far as I could tell.
No, not at all. I mean, this film focuses a lot on Yahya. I hope I'm saying his name right. And I think, I mean, I've seen him in. I saw him on another. I think he was. Oh yes, he was in. If I'm not mistaken, he was in Watchmen, the TV show. So, actually, let me double check that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He was in Watchmen.
Yeah. So, one thing I do find interesting is the man is cut. Like, I mean, they did pick probably one of like a model of a man, which is kind of funny. I mean, not to objectify the person, but I was just like,
yeah. And they do show skin.
They show skin. I mean, and in fact, I mean, the movie itself sort of plays with that when the receptionist kind of gets distracted because, you know, the guy is like good looking and all that.
Right.
But yeah, so I think Yahya did a really good job. The other person that actually I really liked the casting of was Michael Hargrove for Sherman Fields. He's a very minor character, although granted he's sort of portrayed as Candyman, at least in Anthony's head. But I thought he did just a really good job at sort of portraying both this innocent old man, but also a scary ghost. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought he was good. I mean, he has 3 minutes of screen time, but he did a good job on that. He has to come out of the wall. He has to do some interesting facial expressions.
Well, so this, I guess this is something I forgot to put in my notes, but it just popped in my head. One thing about this movie is that they tell you a story and then they retell it to you many times, with variations. He's one of them. Helen Lytle's story, the original Candyman story, is told many times too, and I do like the sort of when you first see Sherman Fields, the way it's shot, the way it's portrayed, everything, the man looks scary, right? Like he has the hook. He comes off out of a hole, like dropping candy, looking at this child, like almost menacing. And then they tell you again, and then you see him, and it's like, oh, actually, it's a really innocent, friendly face. And, he just has a fucking hook. And that's when you see him being, shot. Mm-hmm. And the same happens like when you see his reflection. There are moments where he looks almost playful, and there are moments where he looks, evil. So you have the retelling of his story, the retelling of Helen, of the crazy woman who was going to burn a baby, to, the original movie, which is the woman who actually saved the baby from Candyman. I think they all play their role really well.
Right. I mean, and if you think about it, it's like the original big theme of it was sort of like the myth making and urban legends of it, which, they sort of play around with that idea in this film, mm-hmm. As well, and just like the different generations of it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you have any other things that have stood out to you?
I would say, I think I talked about the two things that really stood out to me in terms of like cinematography and the cast being just generally very strong, mm-hmm. As well as some of my complaints. Two things I missed is the score, which I already mentioned. Really wish they used the Philip Glass if they could have. One thing I liked about the original that wasn't here at all is like some of the lines that Tony Todd had in the original Candyman, just how it's like this weird romantic figure. Mm-hmm. It's like, be my victim, and lines like that. And Tony Todd's got a great voice. It's like, I don't know how they could have integrated in that, but I did miss that, if I'm being honest.
I agree, but I mean, in most of the movie, you actually didn't really... You didn't have Tony Todd's Candyman. I mean, Tony Todd's Candyman like comes to life at the end.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand why they didn't do it. It's not a huge complaint. I just missed it.
Yeah, I
would have been down for some weird Clive Barker lines about victims and romantic stuff. So
you kind of had a little bit of that at the end. You even had the sound, the sound of his voice, at the end, when you even get to see him a little bit. I like how... I agree with you, though. I mean, this was a different Candyman. The embodiment of the Candyman you see here, and I think this is the part where it almost goes back to the Candyman is dead. The Candyman we see is not the Candyman from the original movie. The Candyman we see is the Candyman from Anthony's head.
Yep.
Yeah. And that Candyman is in Anthony's head only thanks to Burke, who witnessed Fields being killed. So the only and that's I think that's the choice of why they use Fields as Candyman, because that's the Candyman that came alive until he finally got his original form, which is Tony Todd at the end.
Yeah, it's the Gen X Candyman.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of the OG. That's actually what I have on my notes. OG Candyman.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe what they're going for, which opens the door for a sequel. But they would have to use technology to de-age Tony Todd the entire time, and that would be very difficult.
You don't want to have another Irishman situation. It'd probably just make the film cost way too much money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna have a sequel, but I like a very good horror. It's open for it.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
I mean, it has a very cyclical nature, so it wouldn't be crazy if they had a sequel.
yeah, especially because like in this movie, it almost establishes that uh, for like a requirement for Candyman to exist is for a black man to be killed in an innocent black man to be killed in a horrible way that is very publicized among black community. Oh shit!
So, in other words, not hard. You have inspiration regularly. Sadly.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, oh shit! I do have the puppets here. Any thoughts about puppets?
I like them.
Yeah.
Nice little flourish. I don't have a ton to say about them.
Well done. I don't know if they were computer made or handmade, but very effective either way. I think the music went well with them, and I think Philip Glass music would not have worked as well with them. But just saying.
Yeah. This film was like 90% original music, 10% Philip Glass. I would have gone for like 80% Philip Glass, 20% other music.
Got it. Well, anyways, so yeah, what do you rate this movie?
I will give it a 6.5, and I will say revisit it in 10 years.
6.5. Wow, that's because you gave the original what, a 9?
8.5, 9, something like that.
8.5,
Yeah.
9.
I mean, the original, it really, I liked it even more the second time around. I mean, I really like the original. I think it hits a lot of key points for me.
I give this one an 8.
Okay.
So yeah.
So just a touch beneath the original then for you.
Yeah, because I think I give the original an 8.5. So yeah, I give this an 8. I think it definitely has grown on me the more I thought about it. I mean, even now, thinking one of the words is "say my name," which I here is one part where I personally fucked up, which is "say my name" was one of the chants in many of the Black Lives Matters protests, because it was to humanize the black victims of police or just white violence. And that was like the theme on what this Candyman would say,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I suck. Anyways, I'm talking about like I forgot.
Great ally you are.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm not a good ally.
You're a mediocre ally.
Man.
Anyways,
we're both the other type of minority, so whatever. I'm just kidding. All right, I should shut up before.
Yeah, it's okay. We don't have enough of an audience to get canceled. We're not big enough. We're not worth it.
Maybe this will make us big enough.
Yeah, you're Latinx and I'm Asian X.
Asian X. No, there's actually there was like an acronym for like a new acronym for people coming from the continent of Asia.
Okay. Well, we don't need to get into that here.
Yeah. Anyways, who won?
I've been thinking about this. Man, tough call. I'll give it to the lead. I thought he was good. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, too. I mean, I don't know if he has the strongest performance in the movie, but he had the most screen time, and I thought he did a good job carrying it. So, I'm tempted to give it to some aspect of Nia DaCosta, but I think for me, unfortunately, she gets a little downgraded for the screenwriting, or just how it came together just didn't totally land. So, gonna give it to him.
It is a tough call. I think just like the original, the main character goes through so much. They have to go through so many emotions, so many levels of craziness. But in this one, I give it to Nia DaCosta.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, she is the director, writer, producer, I believe. So.
Yep. I also hope that Monkey Paw Productions continues releasing movies and TV shows. I think, I mean, I don't think you've seen any of. You never saw Lovecraft Country, but
No, I haven't. But they did Keanu, which I liked, Get Out, BlacKkKlansman. I mean, they've done a lot of films. I mean, their hit rate is pretty darn good. So yeah, I mean, I agree.
yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know they did Keanu.
I had it loaded up. I didn't know they did Keanu too until I just loaded it.
That's pretty. That's pretty funny. Anyways, yeah. So, well, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Film to Film. Do you recommend watching this movie?
Yeah, soft recommendation, but yeah.
Do you recommend going to the theaters to watch it?
If you're gonna see it in theaters. Yes.
Yes, I will say the same. You know, instead of going to the theaters and risk catching COVID watching, fucking another Disney
Black Widow.
Another
like
Disney
a dumbass like Iñaki.
Shut. Another Disney film or another Fast and Furious film. Watch this. This is good, and also the audience that will be accompanying you will probably be also very good audience.
Yeah, and let me just go quickly add. A lot of movies that I would rate 6.5 are just kind of boring. This is not boring. This actually has interesting ideas. For me, they just didn't land. I appreciate the ambition of it. So in that sense, I do recommend it, and I think it does have a good chance to land more similar to someone like yourself for some people too.
I mean, was it a slow film?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Exactly. So I think to me that's already a sign of a film that it's worth it. It doesn't feel slow. I mean, as I said before, it almost feels short. So yeah, watch it. Anyways, if you have any comments about the podcast, if you have any ideas of films, because right now we are still picking our films and no one is throwing ideas. If you have anything to say, you can always tweet at us at zafilm2film@gmail.com. That would be zafilm2film@ga.com. And then, that's our email, and our Twitter would be at zafilm2film. So that would be again zafilm2 film.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Good night.
Good night.